Yes, I do not want to be on mute. I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. Um, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to. Okay, because I can't see more than one person at a time. Okay. Okay, Zoom people, can you hear me? Somebody unmute and tell me you can hear me. Hello?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
I
Thank
can
you.
hear you.
Okay. So for Zoom people, if I don't know if I can figure out how to see the chat today. Because I'm on my phone and I haven't messed with it much on my phone. I did not bring my computer today. So if you do have a question, just unmute or do the raise hand. I should be able to see your raise hand, I think. And we can take questions. In the meantime, keep yourself muted. I'm going to just hold this out and talk to everyone, and then I'll turn it around and we'll get started. Welcome everyone to Kansas City Witches Meetup. We have Rachel here doing talking to us about Left Hand Path tonight. A couple of things beforehand. I want to remind everyone we do have two Coffee Coven Still events will be on our Facebook page or on the meetup.com page with times, and we should, both of them I think should be in person or possibly, I don't know if they will be available on Zoom or not. Debatable depending on if the people hosting them can make that work. So I will say we have a sign by the door over here that has all our social media and our Patreon. So if anyone would like to join our Patreon, please do so. We also have a box for love donations to help cover the cost of the room. And in that, I think that's all the announcements I have. And I will get over here and let Rachel take over to talk about Left Hand Path. Okay.
Left-hand path session is ordeal. It was once put, those on the left-hand path should be like a custard, not so easily into the wall. Before we start, I'm going to start off by saying I am on the autistic spectrum. So sometimes it takes a moment for me to collect my thoughts. Sometimes I ramble off. I apologize if I do try to bring me back. The length of this discussion will totally depend on everyone's interaction. There's not one way to do things. There's not one sole way to approach the view of one or anything.
Can you maybe scoot forward a bit and speak up if you need to take off the mask or anything too? I know they're having trouble hearing.
Should I start here?
It may work too. And maybe I'll move up a little. I may move up here a little bit.
One of these chairs to kind of pop the phone at the right angle.
That might help. That's okay. I'm just trying to make the.
There we go.
Right. Okay. Okay. Can you guys hear better?
Well, I don't just say to
I guess you need to start talking.
You guys can hear me, right? Okay, good. So, where to begin? I guess with just simply the definition. Are you familiar with the difference in the right and left hand path? No. Okay. Yeah. The right and left, the difference between the right and left hand path, I guess the way I could put it, is the right hand path finds its virtue in an outward mindset. Magic is meant to help other people, whereas the left hand path, our virtue is pointed more inwards, self empowerment, maybe shadow work, I guess, is the closest thing I can think to compare in terms of the right hand path. Now, we have been characterized and talked about and propagated. You probably heard plenty about people sacrificing cats in the woods and people doing blood ritual sacrifices and satanic rites and things like that. Oh, for sure. When I grew up in a small town. That was my idea of anyone on that path of spirituality. Of course, it started with Anton LaVey's The Satanic Bible. I mean, it's a great place to start if you don't know anything about, but there's so much wrong in his books. So outdated. My path. I don't know how any of you came to your beliefs. I grew up a devout Southern Baptist, and my interest in the occult started at a young age. Of course, anything outside of Christianity, no matter how virtuous and righteous it seemed, be deemed as satanic. And so I was forbid from exploring any of that until I was in a much later age. Of course, I eventually found myself doing what I do now. I have to ask, what is your understanding of light and dark? There's no wrong answers. Mhm.
I don't know, but I got chills when you asked the question. It's a good question.
Right. And I think it really highlights the misunderstanding of the left-hand path when that discussion comes up. I think Katerina once put it in a certain way I couldn't agree more. So to quote Katerina, we are formed in the womb. There is no light in your mother's womb. We are formed in the womb in darkness. There's no lights in the inside of your skull. Your brain is in darkness. And so dark and light don't necessarily have any virtues or morality assigned to them. Lucifer is a being of light. Now, what is your understanding and view of, say, Satan and Lucifer? I've got plenty. There's no wrong answers. It's okay. There aren't any other people. I hear different answers all the time, ranging from. Mhm, mhm. Of course, he's definitely in that boogeyman realm, most definitely. That's probably not a different answer than I was expecting, but probably the most educated answer that I've gotten so far. A lot of people associate that immediately right off the bat with evil and fire and dark, even outside of the context of Christianity. Within the context of Christianity, depending on who you talk to, Lucifer and Satan are either real beings to the individual or they're not. Now, the way I personally view them is they are like they are in the same dynamic as light and dark, or in my view, they both exist and don't exist. more like an egregorian creation. Um, they come with a zeitgeist, a thought. They're like a thought form. Yes, like a token. They're like I see them as like two sides of the same being yet separate, kind of like Odin the All-Father and Odin God of the Hanged. Two, I guess, arguably two different people, but the same person. Lucifer was born, so to speak, from mistranslations and perpetuations of the Catholic Church, of course. Originally speaking, Lucifer was first referred to, I believe, in Hebrew, in context, Babylonia, Halal ben Shahar, who's the morning star. And translated from Hebrew to Latin, they decided to get the morning star being Venus. They decided to keep Lucifer. And so Lucifer came into being, and over time, somehow became the same being or synonymous with Satan. And Satan, of course, also originating from Arabian cultures, Shaitan, the king of jinn, and translations from Hebrew text as well, so in the book of Job, I believe it was, don't quote me. Originally it was he came from the desert, and God asked where he was. It doesn't specifically say Satan, but somehow that ended up as Satan came one day and God asked where he was. Assumed he's Satan. And it's like you say a lot. Through years and years of propaganda, through the performance of the Black Mass, rumors and speculations and demonizations of Western pagan religions, via Saint Boniface, Saint Patrick, and Saint, I can't think of his name off the top. But, they were to Christianize the Western pagan world under the order of Pope Constantine, first after the canonization of the Bible around 600 AD. So, to me, Satan and Lucifer have become real, have come to take on a certain form, have come to take on certain attributes that are obviously entirely objective to the individual who receives them. So I don't know if you could say, oh, he's real to me. That's totally fair. I personally address Satan and Lucifer as their own beings. I do ritual work with them, and I also recognize that they are more or less a reflection of self. How familiar are we with Baphomet? Baphomet. Oh no, you are correct. It is correct. So actually, all three picks. So the name and origin is a French bastardization of Muhammad from the Crusades. Baphomet, but Baphomet because ET is also silent in French. But Baphomet, Baphomet, both correct. And as I had stated, after the Crusades, it was probably and the Knights Templar were disbanded, of course, with the accusation that they worshipped a being named Baphomet. I think maybe scholars tend to think that it was more or less, it might have been more akin to an accusation that they were worshiping Muhammad. Because, on a crusade, there's nothing worse to be accused of worshiping than the god of the Muslims. Now, Baphomet, all the way up until Eliphas Levi gave us his form, was a lot like the term macaroni in, what was it, the 18th century, 17th century? Macaroni fashion, you know, you saw something fancy or new, I guess, something very high class. Oh, how macaroni. Well, in the same case, before the magician Eliphas Levi gave us the form of Baphomet, it was any religion that wasn't Christian, that was more primitive in the eyes of Western Christian civilization, say any like Aztec religion or any like ancient Nordic, right? Like, oh, how Baphomet. Uh, uh, um, and with this form also came the likening to Satan and Lucifer, the beast. And Baphomet's form comes from the demonization of Western pagan gods, the horned god, Pan, Cernunnos, Loki, even, have contributed to the form that we in Christian culture perceive Lucifer, Satan. So when Baphomet is implemented in our altars and our work, they are reflections of the self, of yourself. Each part of Baphomet represents a different aspect. Now there's a mercurial I wouldn't say aspect, but characteristic of Baphomet. Dissolve, separate, male, female, sickness, health, enlightenment, sin, all of which are found in its form. And it's not an object of worship as much as it is a concentration. And so to me, Satan and Lucifer are also in that mercurial balance. Fire and passion, light and enlightenment, the air and the earth and fire. So while I do use those beings in my works, I also recognize that they are not necessarily real. And that is just covering Baphomet, Satan, Lucifer. But going into the Goetia, and going into the 72 spirits of Solomon, a lot of these beings are seen as they are their own pantheon. They all take root in other gods. So the way personally I see it is that the spirits we've all come to know as different demons, Belial, Shaz, Lilith, these things, they all share human characteristics that we find in every culture around the world. Quetzalcoatl can be seen sharing characteristics with Leviathan, the great serpent, God's bane, or I wouldn't say Nidhogg, but I think Nidhogg was the worm that chews at the roots of the world tree. I can't remember exactly, but we also see archetypes in, say, Ishtar and Lilith with Kali. They all have this characteristic of divine feminine that also takes on a warrior position, dominant female goddess. Yeah, yes, also like Athena, yes. As a matter of fact, speaking of Lucifer and all these gods, they say the Latin is in Lucifer, and the was the name of Prometheus before the Latinization. So taking Prometheus into the Roman god, it was from Prometheus to Lucifer, and then the demonization of pagan gods took place. So that also falls into him both existing and not existing as well. the gods that I like to think of them sort of as like a I wouldn't say like a shadow selves of other gods, but definitely different forms of the same spirit. That man, in order to make digestible, has given a specific name and given a specific form to, and has honored that through years of their own way of through years of honoring the spirit in their own way. They've maybe developed dogma that they've then made the deity rigid in that way, I guess I could say. Are there any questions about? Yeah.
Does Peppermint have a triple association, like
Another, I'm sorry.
a triple association?
Yeah. And in what way do you mean?
Talking about the people said Lucifer, Satan, and Baphomet.
Uh-huh.
I was just wondering if it had like an association with each other.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. So, of course. With the advent of Satan, of course, the Church of Satan and things like that, the image of Satan was really Baphomet. And you show Baphomet to any layman on the street, they go, "Oh, Satan. Oh, that's Beelzebub. That's Lucifer. And so I think it's more of a generalization. A lot of people, I mean, I personally was raised to think that Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, all of them, they're all the same, like in the same way that I was also taught, like in the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are also all one God. So I was taught that all these, and that's completely incorrect. Sorry, I trailed off. I should return to that. In terms of Galatia, all of those gods are found. They have like Asmodeus, for instance. He has Mesopotamian roots, infertility, and love and things like that. And through time, he became, in the stories of Solomon, this hairy beast who ravaged virgins. Baal is a Mesopotamian god. Is you find Ugaritic texts cult around people like Baal and people like the predecessor to Asmodeus, to Ishtar or Inanna.
Would you say that your pantheon is
Well, I would say a lot has originated from Mesopotamia. I would say, especially people like Asmodeus and Lilith, they definitely have a background in Mesopotamia and in the name of the name is Sumerian. Yes, thank you. They have a Sumerian background. Not all of them. All people like Rosier are more recent. He's French in origin, and I personally recognize him. People like Belial, Baal, and Beelzebub all have origin in that Sumerian and Ugaritic text is Baal, or Lord, I guess. Hence why I go to say that each of these names all envelop or encompass particular aspects. Let's see, Furfur could be akin to any god of the storm, and it doesn't. How do I put this? they are more akin to daemons. You know, I think the biggest misconception with working with demons is that they're all destructive and evil and want your soul and want to have a price for everything. And a lot of the advice that they give, a lot of the things that they give are from internal work. You know, you're not gonna cut your hand and bleed on some weird sacrifice and burn some incense and get $1 million. You know, yes.
Plans for the night.
Curses a lot. A lot of people people worry about curses. And I think of curses in the same way, maybe. Well, I wouldn't say in the same way, but maybe in a similar way as those who. Now, you're in a field, right? You're in a field, and someone's wronged you, and this field is nothing but grass, big old piles of horseshit, and you are angry enough to throw that horse. You want to throw that horseshit at him, but first you got to pick it up. Then you're gonna have horseshit on your hands. Is it worth it? Is what you're doing worth it? Yes, and that it depends on how justified it is. You know, a lot of these people that come into the left-hand path, one of the dangers of channeling these spirits, of feeling them, of speaking to them, is this chosen one syndrome. I can't stand those who exempt the symptoms of chosen one syndrome. You get all kinds of funky people. I'm the son of Lucifer. I'm the embodiment of Satan. I'm Belial. I'm this, that, and the other. I'm destined to destroy the world. Edgelords. And I feel like right, left, right hand path got them. I know what interested me in magic to begin with was this. I was totally off put by it at first because I had the idea that everyone that believed in magic believed the same way this person did. And she was convinced that she could summon a storm and force a lightning bolt to strike someone if she so pleased, and was one of these people that says, you know, I put a spell on my card to whisper to me and tell me exactly where it is if I mispark or something, and it was very strange to me at first. But of course, I come to learn better. I digress. The the workings of those on the left-hand path are internal, and your relationship with the gods are, of course, quintessential to these workings. Each one has something to say. And I know with Solomonic magic, the idea is, oh, you draw a few pentacles on the ground and say some words in Hebrew, and you control these spirits, like Solomon did. Well, first off, Solomon is just a story and nothing more. Secondly, I don't know how familiar you are with the seven powers of Africa, or Loas, or Orishas, but last time I checked, you can't control those beings. You're not going to go to a voodoo altar and put on a special El or Yahweh ring. And in the power of El, I command you, Baron Samedi. Like you can't. It's not going to happen. You can't force these things to bow to you. They're beyond our third dimensional comprehension. So with that in mind, a lot of this is just defining the left-hand path. To state, left-hand path is not about smiting and controlling demons and becoming powerful. And that seems to be the big misconception. People in left-hand path, when I say it's self-empowerment, they typically think of maybe like a superhero movie villain making themselves powerful to rule the world, like, oh, hoarding all this power. And it's like, no, it's more like instead of relying on a god or someone to to fix you, the God instead hands you a mirror and tells you to fix yourself. You know, it's inward looking. You have to think about yourself and say, well, what about helping people? Well, if that's your prerogative, if that's what you want to do with your life, if that's what gives you gratification to help other people, then do it. You know, but to not help others comes with the consequences. Inaction is also an action and comes with consequences. If your inaction causes someone to go homeless or to ruin somebody, or your selfishness has gone to a point of counterproductiveness, then obviously there is a consequence to those things. So we're not power hungry, we're not selfish, we're not per se, we're not hateful fear mongers. But yeah.
Okay, so like listening, to talk, like it almost sounds like more of like a reclamation of the things that are forbidden specifically by Christianity. Like not obviously that's not but like that's kind of what is coming across. Like all these things that are
Yes.
like
A
demonized,
rejection of Christianity.
right.
Right.
Almost
Yes.
almost a reaction
Yeah.
to that.
Yes.
Like more
Yeah.
self-empowering through that.
That was definitely my initial. That was definitely my initial reaction to coming out of Christianity. A lot of it seemed spiteful, and I went through this angry atheist stage. And I've gotten that before. I've gotten that plenty. That this is just a rejection of Christianity, but it's not like Christianity only rejected my path, rejected anything that wasn't Christian. So being pagan, being Odinist or Druid or Wiccan would also be in rejection to Christianity. I found this path through opening myself up to because I came to a spiritual truth, to a spiritual revelation. Like I was angry that I was forced to worship a God that said that they were the only one, and by divorcing myself from that concept, I initially, well, there is no God, but that's incorrect. We all, a lot of the biggest argument I as a Christian made was, oh, well, if God doesn't exist, why does every culture have God, And as an atheist, say, okay, well, if God was real, then why doesn't every culture have the same God? And I that wasn't the argument I thought it was. And I thought about that particular point longer. Like, wait, every culture has come to, for the most part, has come to this spiritualization of something greater than them. They come to a spiritual awakening. And it's not like ignoring it means that it's not real. I used to call it just a special feeling until too many synchronization in my life comes into play for me to simply ignore the possibility of a greater power. And what most, I want to say, vibed with me was the idea of hard truth. And the way I view the Galatians, the way I view these quote unquote demons or daemons, is more of a harsher shadow version of the gods that those on the right hand have. While their focus is, maybe love and light, and specifically helping others, I see, well, helping others is good, but opening yourself up to abuse and ignoring both sides of the same coin is toxic. It's like a toxic positivity. And so immersing myself in those, the darker parts of not only myself, but also the divine, I've found unquestionable self-truths rehabilitated myself and my outlook on the world around me. Uh, uh, how do I put this? Oh no, you're fine. I'm just having. I'm trying to. This is one of those things where I've got words in my brain, but I can't make it come out my mouth because autism. um, um, when when I'm not going to say that it became black and white, but when I started to realize that I didn't blame it on unfortunate circumstance. All of my circumstance I blamed on me. You know, it was this. Well, I guess what maybe Wiccans would call shadow work. I'm not familiar with the term shadow self or shadow work. I'm not really sure what the definition of that is, but it sounds a lot like what a lot of left-hand pathers work with. Like we're not just familiar with our shadow selves. We are our shadow self, not necessarily evil and mean or whatever, but hard truth, um, personal responsibility, accountability, and inward thinking, and constantly improving. Not seeing yourself as flawed, but seeing yourself as in a state that could be better always, because there's always room for improvement. Wouldn't necessarily say that it's I guess that's I gotta watch the wording on that. So not to say that I'm not in a state that I could, I'm not as good as I could be. I'm pretty great, but I could always I don't want to get set in my ways. Is what I mean to say. It's don't get set. No one's um, outside of that realm of falling short. Does Zoom have any questions? Do Zoom people have any questions?
Zoom people, feel free to unmute and ask questions if you have questions. Dominic, you have a hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes. So when you talk about, I guess, taking a left-hand perspective or a demonic perspective or satanic or whatever kind of perspective, is that necessarily like an anti-theistic thing, or like if you're assuming traditional gods do exist, gods of light or whatever, what's your perspective towards them then? Is it necessarily anti-theistic or pantheistic, or polytheistic or gnostic or what?
That depends on the individual. Personally, me, I am would say polytheistic. The gods of the light, or I guess that's how you would put them. They share aspects with the daemons. Like I said, I made a likening earlier. Ishtar, Lilith being considered a demon to some, an angel to others, and Kali and Athena all share similar strong warrior female aspects who are also mother nurturing mothers. My view on any god, Greek pantheons, Nordic pantheons, I think they're all equally as valid. I don't think that demons, or as you would maybe a lot of people would call them, are the only gods, but that they represent shadow aspects of the gods of the light. I personally petition some Celtic gods. I do look towards Cernunnos. I do look towards sometimes Thor, Loki, sure, for wit. So I think that they are all valid. I don't think that that they're invalid. But as far as atheistic or polytheistic or what have you, I think that really depends on the individual. When it comes to Satanists, like that of Anton LaVey, I would put them in the category of angry atheist with a Satan sticker slapped on it. I think those you would find the aesthetic Satanist. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Satanist, but I would definitely call myself like a left-hand path witch, or sometimes I tell you like a satanic witch, but not really satanic, because I don't really associate myself anymore with that particular name, being that Lucifer, Satan, and Baphomet are merely reflections of the self. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Quick follow up. But you do mention Lucifer or Baphomet or whatnot. If assuming assuming someone does follow that, uh, does that imply a sort of does that imply a reaction towards the more traditional Yahweh or whatever God of light? Does that imply like a acting counter, or just separate from that? Is my question.
I feel it can. I feel it can, like I said, depending on the individual. I live with someone who is friends, not only themselves, but friends with a lot of Luciferians, and their belief in that being is definitely not like a visceral reaction to Christianity, but rather a true, honest to God's path of self, and this self betterment and enlightenment. They really find value in this being, and they really feel that Lucifer is sure an object of hate, but a misunderstood object of hate. Like, how could this being of light, this angel that everyone says, oh, it's beautiful, whatever, be so demonized? So I guess I don't want to speak for Luciferians, but they definitely take the Lucifer as light and knowledge and wisdom sort of approach, as opposed to, like, you know, maybe the more visceral, yeah, I'm gonna sell my soul to Lucifer, fuck Jesus, turn a cross upside down, listen to some mayhem and sacrifice a cat.
Teenage edge lords.
Yes, I think you'll find, we call those people Christian Satanists, people who adopt Christianity's standard of Satanism or Luciferianism or the left-hand path in general. I think really in any path or community, you can find those with visceral reaction, reaction to Christianity. I know plenty of pagans who were like, oh, they are totally white lighters, like, oh, light and love and all that, but they are absolutely like, no, Christianity, they want to burn us and they want us to not exist, and they have this visceral like gag reaction to the mentioning Jesus or Yahweh. I have one who has an interesting view of Yahweh or El, and they'd say, well, sure, he's real, but he's not as powerful as he says, and he really only cares about the Jews or his people, and he really only cares about the Jews. And I respect any view, but I feel, like I said, I feel like it depends on the individual.
Awesome. Good answer. As a quick aside for Zoom people, right now, just as a note, my battery says it goes until 9 p.m. So if it suddenly turns off, I apologize right now. It's, like I said, having issues today. Just this quick aside. Do we have any other questions for Rachel from any Zoom people? Not yet. Okay.
Can I ask something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that I heard this correctly. That were you saying that the demons are the shadow, or could be the shadow aspects of the old gods? I just wonder if I heard that right. And what did you mean by that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Uh, when I say, like I say before, um, um, each of these demons are born from a place of demon. I feel like are born from a place of demonizing uh, uh, the Western pagan world, and a lot of the Goetia, or what I call Goetia plus. You say because Lilith isn't in the Goetia, neither is Lucifer or Rosier or oh, I can't. Anyway, these daemons share many aspects with the old gods as well. Um, Now, like I say, Satan, Lucifer, and Baphomet don't, not really. I wouldn't. I think Lucifer, the closest you could get is Prometheus, and apart from that, not really. Satan, Lucifer, and Baphomet, for the most part, are totally born out of hate for pagan religions and superstition and propaganda, almost entirely. Of course, um, there are plenty of uh, uh, magicians now and people who channel that energy and that I'm just going to say like a tulpa or egregorial spirit through them and come to different they have their own understanding, you know, and have written about it, and that's a collective lore as of now. I digress. uh, Jumping just back to the only example I can think of off the top of my head, Lilith shares a lot of aspects with Kali, with Athena, and with Ishtar. So,
Thank you.
and by extension, is related to that. So when I do work with Lilith, um, and this goes for the people I live with as well. They at their altar of Lilith, they have statues of Kali and Ishtar as well, because we view Lilith as sharing. I want to say I was Michael Ford who wrote this book, and you all can check it out if you want. Called Dragon of the Twin Flames. It's an interesting read about Sumerian culture and things of that nature. He goes into to what he calls deific masks, and that the same spirit of the human, what I would describe as spirits of the human race. This deific, this deity, the spirit has taken on different masks, and what I would say is that across the globe, we have plenty of examples of warrior mothers and who are in this realm of the divine feminine. All of them have, in some cases, have not even necessarily had contact with each other, you know, beforehand. They've all met this spirit and called them different things, and they've all had their way of making it digestible. And so Lilith to me is born out of maybe a misunderstanding, but I would definitely say that while Kali and Athena and Ishtar have things to say, I think Lilith would be like the shadow of these gods and have her own things to say. You know, I think the way to look at it isn't necessarily that she is their shadow or evil version, but rather another form of the spirit who has things to say that are more aligned with the darkness. And the Orishas and Loas aren't as good or evil or necessarily light or dark because they'll have their aspects, but rather hot and cold. Or I guess dark and light too works. I hope that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I do have a question from someone on the chat here. Says, can we talk about how LHP does not need the veneration of demons or deities in order to be enacted by witches? There's a misconception about this that is common and makes some practitioners shy away from
Yeah.
LHP as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, because the left-hand path is really it's just a mindset of inward thinking and not outward. You're absolutely correct. You don't need to work with demons in order to be on the left-hand path. You can absolutely work with any of the old gods and still be on the left-hand path. I'm not going to speak for. I think we've talked about it before. I would say that Katarina is more. She does a lot of shadow work, and she still works with a lot of the old gods. She sometimes petitions Lilith and maybe works with Baphomet. So she's sort of. I would call her sort of left-hand path, but not exactly. Like I said, I'm not going to speak for her. I don't actually know for certain, but just from hearing her speak and talk about things. Yeah.
Do you ever work with, have you ever met people who work with the left-hand path but are maybe atheist witches?
Atheist witches?
Atheist or non-theistic witches?
Well, yeah, I guess. Like I said, a lot of. Okay, so not to liken them to Satanists, but I know initially Anton LaVey had this idea of like an agnostic belief system that they were like deists, and that they did a lot of work with their own spiritual energy, a lot of inward whatever spirituality they felt they possessed, any power they felt they possessed, they worked with that. What they call emotional decompression. Absolutely, I think that if you can not believe in gods and still practice magic, because after all, in terms of the deific mask, it's funny that that's mentioned because they don't really say that man has created the deific mask and that man has created the god. I don't agree with that. Personally, I feel like these gods came into being with our existence and not necessarily guided us on evolution, because that's kind of odd to say, but rather came into form with our ability to pursue them. Like they were always there, but they were waiting behind a door for us to step through. And personally, I feel like these gods don't. They have many different names and all embody the same aspects, and we've all come to know them in different ways. But yes, it's absolutely possible for you to work magic and not believe in that at all.
Yeah.
So that's a very good point. I appreciate that quite a bit. Thank you.
Right.
Any questions from our
You guys?
audience? Yeah.
Okay.
You talked about toxic positivity.
Mhm.
Is there a member of the who you would with that person?
Yeah. I think if you were going to look for a path or to look to enter the path, not Asmodeus, oh my gosh, Astaroth. Astaroth is in fact an initiatory spirit. He is in legend both angel and demon, right? According to the Solomonic legends, the myths, but he does embody both points of light and dark, and it is definitely petitioned by people who are new to the left-hand path to guide them through the routes on that. Even when it comes to emotional balance, when it comes to particular working needing basically a hand to hold you through, there's someone to hold your hand and walk you through something, Astro Office, the person you want to look into. Definitely, there are many great resources online that will tell you all about the spirits. When I forget spirits preferred, like say mineral or something like that, I don't believe that like minerals and colors and candles and things like that are necessary. You can have an entire ritual in your mind and connect with the gods that way, but these objects are rather focuses to help you channel that energy outwards and make it more real for you. You know what I mean? And so I go to this encyclopedia called Demons and Demonology. If you want a good understanding of the left-hand path, Sarah Connolly's book, Demonology, is a good place to start. Dragon of the Twin Flames is another good book, another fantastic book if you want like backgrounds on a lot of the poetic names. Even Awakening Lucifer is another good book. Yes.
What would you say would be the difference between goddesses that are currently that focus spirits, but aren't necessarily like the more
I would-
mentioned how Polly,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like Polly,
Like the Morrigan.
herself is very very
Yeah.
dark, but like she's not in.
Yeah.
So like
She's not in the
what's
Goetia,
difference?
so there isn't much really.
Okay.
I would just say demons are the only way, not the only way, but probably the most, because it's not like you can refer to a large group of particular gods with one name. And in this case, the Goetia is just saying Goetia covers 72 spirits. So I wouldn't even call them demons. I think demon is also in itself like derogatory. Personally, I refer to them as demons. You can refer to them however. They're all spirits of the same caliber. They're not like spiteful, vitriolous, conniving. Anyone who does work with these things and ends up worse off than what they were before has done it completely to themselves. You can work with Ronavi, right? And Ronavi is great in understanding rhetoric and the interpersonal relations with other people. If you really want to understand what it truly means to be charismatic and to connect with people, you go to Ronavi. However, if you use his petitioning to try and control other people, you will end up worse off than what you were before. Because you're not going to control other people. You're not trying to manipulate other people. So it's funny to say that he will punish you for manipulating other people, and people still call him evil demon. And it's just strange to me, you know. Wall, I believe. Oh no, sorry, Malthus. I believe it was by either the Catholics or later occultists referred to him as Satan's favorite. And really, what they expect is that he's going to destroy someone. He's a destroyer. Like, no. The way personally I see Malthus in terms of destruction is a lot the same way as Shiva, in that the destruction is only there to make way for higher building. He builds. He is who you want to go for foundation. When I first arrived here, the first experiment I did working with magic was a spell of stability, because he is a very centric spirit on foundation. He is depicted mostly as like a mortar worker, but also as a crow or a raven. And he's also said to destroy towers, especially. So, like, no, if you're going to use him in a curse, he's more likely to shake their foundations and if they're and using him in a curse, what I would consider as valid is when you throw that curse, you are not damning them. You are merely forcing the consequences of their actions, so to speak. So if I'm going to use Malthus in a curse, it is because the person I'm aiming at has poor foundations and is some kind of poor foundation and is preying on other people. So if, say, a business has fraudulent tactics, terrible predatory tactics, then you use Malthus because that's no way to live. When a curse doesn't work and it's not justified, it's really, when it comes to curses on the left-hand path, you're really cursing them with self-improvement. You know what I mean? When you're teaching them a lesson about what is wrong with them, it's really like taking a spiritual, huh? Yes, it's like a spiritual way of telling someone about themselves and then making them face their own inadequacies and the consequences of such. So, like I say, or say, the spirit of, what's his name? I could tell you every name off the top of my head, but now that I need it, I'm blanking.
That's usually how it goes.
Murmur, and he's used in a lot of divination, specifically in necromancy, but also in whispers and secrets and things like that. I'm not saying you can go with Murmur into a graveyard and start speaking to any ghost you want, but rather when I hear in works of necromancy and talking to the dead, I think of that more as being more open to the wisdom of your forefathers, the people who come before you, people that are no longer here and have wisdom to pass, and every dark corner there, little things, little lessons that you didn't know from your grandparents, your parents, they have to pass on later. It wasn't until after he passed that I learned my great-grandfather was an alcoholic, a severe alcoholic, and seeing how it not only affected him and what he had come from it, I've avoided alcohol from that. And I would say Murmur is more akin to family secrets, but finding the wisdom and why that those things are kept hush-hush to begin with. They're learning from the mistakes of your ancestors. So a lot of descriptions you'll find of these spirits are, of course, from the Dictionary Infernal, or I think the Lesser Key of Solomon. But he who wrote the initial description for each in the Dictionary Infernal, I can't remember his name. He first started writing it with the intent to paint them as they truly are, as spirits with advice to give that aren't of God, aren't of Yahweh. But as by the third edition, he had become a newfound Catholic, and so we have the descriptions we know of today from the Dictionary Infernal, like that Asmodeus is a rapist of virgins and daughters, that Lilith steals baby. Well, that actually comes from years and years of Jewish folklore, but you get what I'm saying. Like, trying to think if there's anything else I need to cover. If there's anything else I haven't covered. So I've described. Let's see. I've described my path, my view of the gods. how workings with these spirits go and what to expect from them. Any questions at all? Anymore at all? None?
Anyone on Zoom have any other questions? Not seeing any so far. I will say, Zoom people, 15 minutes or less, I will be out of battery. I'm on 3%.
I'm gonna-
Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up Zoom. Just because it's solo and it's probably gonna die soon anyway.
My name is Rachel Mary Stout. You can find me on Facebook. If you have any interest or any other questions, or you want to explore further, I'm totally open. I share my workings all the time. I do a lot of spell work at home, so, and I post about it. And I don't do those things on camera for people because it's very private, but I do share the aftermath and descriptions of things. So if you have any interest, you find me on Facebook. Same goes for any of you if you have any interest in any of the spirits. I know if you need help finding information on Astaroth or Ashtaroth, I can definitely point you in the right direction. Can help you with books to be found, connect you with a couple of covens or things like that in Kansas City or in the left-hand path. You're going to have a really hard time finding it. A lot of our covens are really groups of friends who have come to a certain understanding because
Yeah.
we all are so different.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you got Ash here to sit where I'm sitting, or you got our friend Shannon to sit where I'm sitting, we would have a completely different discussion about the view of the gods and what they mean to them. Have a long discussion about like the nexus of the self and how the gods change the world around us and things like that. I'm sure you have a blast with Shannon if she was able to make it. But yeah, that's
All right.
you're fine.
Thank you everyone on Zoom. I'm gonna sign off before it dies. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time. I will, as soon as I get next month scheduled, I'll get it posted on Facebook and the meetup site as well. Bye everybody.